Hello everybody, welcome to Cars, Etc, Etc with me, Sasha Martinengo. It's a show about cars, etc, etc, whatever it is. And it's brought to us by altcointrader.co.za. Go there, register, start playing in the world of cryptocurrency. I'm focusing on the word Porsche today. A lot of people say Porsche, some people say Porsche. I think Porsche just sounds more fantastic. And the thing is, it's German. So the thing with Porsche and being German, you know it's going to be reliable, it's going to be practical, you know it's going to make you feel very good. And when you mention the name Porsche and the name Abbot, it's like synonymous. So, you know, it should be Tim Abbot Porsche, I think. Hey, Tim, I mean, you are renowned. You are a master craftsman. You are an aficionado when it comes to the world of Porsche. And in South Africa, I mean, I don't think there's anybody who doesn't know you when it comes to Porsche.
Yeah, I'm quite well known. And it came from my father. You know, my father was the one who started off the Porsche thing, and I just followed in his footsteps.
So, I mean, when you're growing up as a little kid, you know, you sit there and there's some kids who love cars and they'll play with cars, but then from there their interest wanes. Yours was just sort of, this is what we're doing.
Yeah. So yeah, my father started with all sorts of cars in the early days, MGAs, Alphas, and then I think he saw the light because he was tired of all the oil leaks and getting stuck with the British cars and Italian cars, and then we went on to Porsches and we never looked back.
The one German engineering.
Correct.
That's what I want, and that's the one thing about Porsche. I mean, it's just so reliable. What makes Porsche so popular?
I think it's the drivability of a Porsche. You know, it's a car you can get in, drive, start, stop, go anywhere at any time. You don't have to worry about clearances. You don't have to worry about, I don't know, not much. You know, it's a practical car.
It's unbelievably well made. Do all Porsches hold their value though?
No, I wouldn't say so. So obviously the popular Porsches that do. Then there were some models, as in, you know, the first water-cooled that came out, the 924s, 944s, 928s. I think the good ones do hold their value.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the top of the range, like the GTSs and, you know, the 924 GTs and Carrera GTs, and that they do because they're special cars, but the run-of-the-mill, there were a lot of them made, and there wasn't really a following. There were other front-engine cars that were superior or just as good, and they didn't have that collectability as air-cooled 911s and that shape.
So now let's just stick a little bit on 924, because I see a lot of, like in classic racing, you know, people manage to find an old 924 and then they turn it into a race car as opposed to restoring it into the road-going car and sell it. So it seems to be quite a practical way to utilize that kind of a car.
Correct. Yeah, it is. So it's a fantastic handling car.
Yeah.
Guys say they race those 924s, they carry corner speed. They've got no straight line speed, but corner speed, they just turn in and go, you know, and it just keeps its line. So it's a good car to modify. It's actually relatively cheap to buy because there are 924s that have been abandoned because you can't sell them. You know, so you buy them for a certain amount of money and something goes wrong, it will cost more to fix it than, you know, just to scrap it. So the guy scrapped it and you pick them up for nothing. Fix up the motor, obviously you've got to modify the motor, so that's no brainer.
Yeah.
And lighten it, put a roll cage in and you race it.
Sounds like a no-brainer. You arrived here, and I mean, it's amazing. It's like my first question. Let's talk rare Porsche cars first, the 356. I mean, it's iconic. Just like the brand of Porsche is iconic. The 356 it must be one of the most distinguished and distinguishable cars out there. Are there a lot of them available in South Africa, or a lot of them around?
There are a lot of them around. And we try to get the guys to drive them. A lot of people store them and don't take them out, and they're a little bit nervous about, you know, we're part of a 356 owners group and we go on drives, and often the comments are, I'm not sure if my car's reliable enough to go there, and what happens if it gets stuck, and who's going to help me to get back? So there's that perception coming out, and the guys aren't maintaining them. They're keeping them and they're not driving them. But they're reliable. I drive everywhere with mine.
Okay, but you know how to look after yours as well. But it's a problem that we find in the classic market where people will go and sit and say, oh, geez, okay, it's quite expensive, but I'm going to buy myself a 356, get someone to fix it up and then put it in the storeroom. And then all of a sudden the brake linings go and the fuel linings go and whatever. Advice to people who have got classic cars, not just Porsche, but everything else that, 50 or 40 to 50, 60 years old. I mean, surely these cars need to be driven.
It is, true. Everything needs to be driven, to be used, and also in driving it, you sort of identify faults.
Yeah.
So you drive it one day, a bit of a rattle there, what is it? You go back and you have a look at it, no, the hubcate's loose. It's better than it falling off on the 120 k's an hour on the highway and you never find it. Or, the brakes are a little bit low. Why are they low? Go and have a look. There's a puddle of brake fluid underneath the car. Replace the brake pipes. And they are going to go. If you leave a car, even if you do drive it, faults do happen. But if you leave it, you think, well, it was going as well as it went the last time. Maybe not.
Yeah. So, and also, I mean, the thing about it is these cars inherently had little nuances that weren't perfect.
Correct, yeah.
And you've got to respect that as well. I mean, it's quite crazy when people go and buy a classic car and they'll go, oh, okay, I found myself a 356 in really good condition. I paid a lot of money. And they expect it to drive like a modern day 911.
Correct.
It just doesn't work that way.
No, well, you've got to have the understanding of what the car was and drive it as if you were in period. Don't get into the car and expect it's going to have aircon and it's going to have power steering and it's going to have servo-assisted brakes, and it's not going to have that. Some of them don't have synchros on all the gears. You've got to realize you've got to stop first before you put it into first on some of the crash boxes on the early cars.
Amazing.
So, that's what you've just got to drive it as you would in period.
If, for example, I come across a barn find and there's a 356 and it's just full of a lot of dust and it's got all of its parts in it, and I bring it to Tim Abbot Cars and I say, Tim, I want you to do a once over on the car and get it running for me. Is it expensive to refurb or get an old 356 running? And is it worth it?
Yes, it definitely is worth it. And it depends on what level you want to go to. So if you just want to get it running, and I do have those requests all the time.
Yeah.
Guy bringing a car that he's either inherited from his family or a trust, or he's found somewhere, and he says, I'll trailer it there, can you just make sure that this thing's not going to break down on me? So same thing, go through the brakes, bleed the brakes out, change the brake hoses, the safety issues, go through the fuel, drain the fuel, maybe reline the fuel tank, or so it starts to rust, maybe take the carbs off, clean that out. And normally those motors or something else, you just replace the oil, and the 356 doesn't really have a full flow filter, but you replace the filter, start it up, and they're fantastic, just off it goes. Maybe set the valve clearance, a few small things. The tires are extremely important. If people don't do that, they think, oh, it's got period tires, fantastic. Yeah. Michelin XWXs from 1950,
As hard as a rock.
Yeah. And it's going to delaminate.
First corner doesn't turn, tire comes off.
Well, not only that, I've had ones that delaminated and ripped the fender off.
Oof.
So, if you're doing 100, even 60 k's an hour and that thing delaminates, it does nasty damage.
Exactly. You know what? Take the tires off, put them in the garage, get new tires. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Please. So many people make those mistakes. Yeah. It's unbelievable. Period car. No matter, you buy a 10-year-old Porsche, you sit there and go, oh, fantastic, I've got it. And you go, but hold on, have you checked the rubber?
Yeah.
And tires not meant to last that long.
Correct. Yeah.
People, it's bizarre.
Until it delaminates on you once, that's like a very good lesson.
Air-cooled Porsches. I mean, that's what Porsche is known for. And it was only in the 90s where they started going more the water-cooled. Are they still as popular?
Well, late 90s.
Late 90s.
99, eh?
Jeez, I mean, it's only 23 years ago.
No, up to 98 they were air-cooled.
Incredible. In a climate that we have in South Africa, have you ever found that, all of a sudden these things overheat a little bit too much?
Well, they are obviously reliant on ambient temperature, and they do get hot according to what the temperature is outside, but they don't really overheat. So the cooling's normally adequate. The Germans did a good job.
They managed to get the airflow in correct.
Correct. Yeah, if there are some obstacles in the airflow, yes, it can overheat. And also if the motors get dirty, have oil leaks, they have a lot of dust settling on the fins and everything, yes, then they do run a bit hot. But also, running hot, they can run hot. They've got a range of temperature that they're running. It's not like a set temperature like in an air water-cooled car. 90 degrees, temperature gauge stops there and it stays there all the time.
Did owners of Porsches, were they reluctant when Porsche decided in '99 to all of a sudden go the water-cooled route on a lot of their vehicles? Was there a hesitancy and people going, oh, you're destroying the ethos, the DNA of Porsche? Or did they accept that this was the way that they had to go?
Well, I think, you get the diehards and the real perfectionists, not really perfectionists, the purists that would say, oh no, water cool's not right. Also, they'd already had a taste of it in the 928 and the 90, and they didn't really work. So the 911 going water cooled, but it's a way to go. You know what? You cannot get the power out of these cars, out of air cooled motors that you can out of water cooled motors. The clearances are much bigger. You can run a lot higher compression ratios. A whole lot of stuff that you can't do in air cooled cars. So it was the natural progression.
Yeah. Before we get into the 911 range, because that just boggles my head on everything, I want to go back to 928 because I thought it was one of the most astonishing cars. I really just, because it just didn't look like a 911. It was very far removed from 356. Didn't look like a 944 either. And I remember there were quite a few evolutions of that car that came out. Is that if you can find one, a decent one, maybe a GTS, is it a car that you can sit and say, sure, let me go and spend my money, buy this kind of car, make sure it's in good condition, use it? Will it hold its value?
I think they will. They will start coming into their own now because of that rarity value, because a lot of them were trashed and a lot of them weren't fixed and a lot of them just left to rot. So
sad.
Yeah, it's sad. But so there's some decent models there.
Yeah.
Certain models. Some of them weren't so good. So as they changed, different electronics, different fuel injections, they had some of the early models that weren't great. But there's a lot of models that were fantastic models.
Are those early models, are they upgradable? So for example, let's say I found an early spec 928. Would I be able to sit there and take it to someone like you and go, Tim, listen, can you upgrade its electronics or whatever and make it like the later versions?
You can, you can do anything. It's just economics, and does it make sense? You could throw a lot of money at it. You're not going to get the money back. This is the issue.
Yeah.
So with most Porsches, that if you take them away from originality is obviously where you want to be.
Fair enough.
So once you start modifying, everybody looks at a modified car and they say, I don't know what he's done. Is it reliable? Is it good? It doesn't. So your idea of what you want and my idea of what I want are two different things. So it's a hard to sell car. So you've got to do it for yourself. Yes, it is upgradable, and anything is doable, but is it economically viable?
Well, that's and I think that is where a lot of people might sit and say, for example, let's move away from Porsche quickly. Let's go to Aston Martin, and all of a sudden a DB5 comes along, and you go, beautiful to look at, got such a history to it, James Bond, but it's a rubbish car. Now you go, let me actually make this new, put in a decent engine, new suspension, keep what it looks like, but make it drivable.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not going to retain its value as though it was an original car, but you could use it.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Correct.
I suppose
you can, but 928s are very usable as they were.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've driven them.
Yes.
And you know them. So if you can get a good 928, even an early 78 928 that's been maintained and is in good nick, you can drive it. You can go from here to Cape Town, not a problem. Beautiful car, air cons work quiet. When the doors close, just all the sound goes away. It's just a beautiful car to drive.
It is
a real grand tourer. That's what it is.
And the sound.
Yeah.
Oh,
nice
the sound
V8.
Was unbelievable. Now, Porsche 911, and the same adage is made year on year. You're driving along the road and it goes, oh, there's a 911. And somebody goes, yeah, but what model is that? And somebody says, no, that's the latest one. And you say, but how do you know? And it's just one of those things. If you just see 5 911s next to each other, unless it's got a big wing and you can distinguish that it's a GT2 or GT3, it's so difficult to tell the difference between these cars. And I find it frustrating. Is it something that Porsche just sits and goes, that's where we are and we're not changing?
Yeah, I think obviously they need to sell cars. So I think they make changes. So the old model looks a little bit older. Put some new bumpers and a little bit of bling on it, and it changes the car. And then everybody, oh, I want the new one. No, that looks old. I want a new one.
Sure,
and it's hard to tell because also people, there's option lists are a mile long.
Yeah.
So you can say, well, I want to spec it with those wheels, and I want to spec it with that tail, and then I want this, program, and I want this gearbox, whatever. But even just appearances, you can change that car completely.
Now, the thing is, and we've got it with all of the brands in the world. So you get a Porsche 911, and then there's a 992 of it. And then there's a 996 of it, and a 993 of it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go in sequential order. No. They just change it.
They just choose any number.
They just choose any number
out of the lines,
when they feel like doing it. Out of just those three, I mean, as we've progressed, every single Porsche 911 that comes out is magnificent. They just are brilliant, practical, and they know what their customers want.
Correct.
All of a sudden you're getting Porsches with cup holders and strange things like that. But all of a sudden, that's what their customers want. What is the difference between a 993 and a 996 and a 992 besides cosmetic changes?
Well, it's cosmetic, engine changes. So they're all a progression of the last model. Like a 993 was the last air-cooled.
Okay.
So that was like the last of the last, and hence they.
So that must be collectible.
Big time, yeah.
Very collectible.
Yeah, very collectible.
Okay.
Then you go on to the 996, was the first of the water cools, and there were a whole lot of issues with the cars. But you got two different types of motors. You got the ones with the Meska motor, which was the GT3s and the turbos.
Okay.
Then you got the other motor, which wasn't a great motor, and you've obviously heard of the IMS bearing problems, and they failed, and they had issues with them. And then they got them right, but you know what, it's always a learning curve. Then they moved from 996 to 997, and obviously Gen 1, Gen 2, and then 991, 992, where they are now. So it's just, they just keep progressing, and they just change the numbers.
Just to confuse all of us.
No, there are proper changes in the car.
Yes.
They change completely, but to the normal guy in the street, they don't really change. Still their normal 911 shape.
Now, when it comes to Porsche was always that sort of, well, it was quite a lot cheaper than a Lamborghini, for example, or even a Ferrari.
Yes.
But nowadays, Porsche prices, new car prices, I mean, are pretty close to where those Lambos and Ferraris are. And they sell bucket loads of them.
Yeah.
What about the exclusivity of owning that Porsche?
Well, it depends on which one you spec. So you've got, if you want the exclusivity, you've got to obviously spec a GT3, GT2, GTS, one of the ones with, the high option lists on them and all the options.
And do they hold their value? I mean, for example, GT2 RS, you go to spec it and you get the Weibach pack on it, etc.
Correct,
It's a fortune of money.
Yeah.
Do they hold their value?
They do, yeah.
Very much so. They're limited numbers, I suppose supply and demand.
Correct.
Yeah. But these are track cars. And I mean,
well, they're road-going track cars.
Road-going track cars. Yeah. And when you come to Porsche motorsport history, I mean, it's unparalleled.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it.
Correct.
The Porsche GT2 RS and the GT3 RS, I'm fortunate to drive both of them. And yes, they are very much day-to-day kind of cars. Big wing is a bit peculiar, especially if you're reversing. But I mean, these cars on the track, as much as they are day-to-day driving cars, I mean, these are the cars you want to see on the track.
Of course.
More than anything else.
Correct, yeah. They are.
They're very, very, very special. Going back to your 356, they're also made for racing in its day, rallying,
correct,
all of those kind of things. How do they handle on a track? Small little wheels?
Yeah, they handle well. I think they probably handle better on the dirt because of the narrow wheels and the weight over the rear wheels, so they've got good traction. Obviously, they've got their little peculiarities, as you know, with the rear engine car. When it does step out, you
got to be able to catch it.
Exactly. But you get to learn to know those things. On the track, they were formidable in their day, as you know. Even 356s, the early 356s, the speedsters, the spiders, all those, they all were fantastic and they're competitive.
Very, very competitive.
Yeah.
Do you think the South African market is oversaturated with Porsche?
I think there's a lot of them. I don't know about oversaturated.
But I mean, there are a lot.
There are a lot, yeah.
So the thing is, when it comes to a resale, all of a sudden you've had a new 911, you've had it for 2 years, 2.5 years. Now you say, okay, well let's try and sell it. I want to change brand. I mean, if you go and trade it in on the new one, of course that'll work out.
Correct, yeah.
Work out for you. But if you try and sell it on your own, you're going to lose more than you expect.
You will lose. Obviously, it's a new car.
No. I mean, just like any car.
Unless it's a real collectible like a GT2, GT3, where it'll retain its value.
Yeah.
But the run-of-the-mill Porsche, and I think like the Cayennes and that, those four-wheel drive ones, they lose value quite a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think that's just the natural kind of phenomenon.
Correct.
Unfortunately, as you drive it off the floor, you might as well say,
Literally.
okay, I'm done. One of the cars I remember seeing, I was in Milan a good few years ago, and it had just been released, and I saw it in a garage through like a gate, Carrera GT. I mean, can't see out of the car, quite crazy in terms of its design, but magnificent.
Yeah.
Just a work of art in the sense of what it was.
Well.
The sound, that had that sort of Formula One kind of sound.
Correct.
Do we have any here?
I think Toby's got a few.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the
Toby,
problem
we're
is
coming
that
to find you.
they're left-hand drive.
Yeah, well, but in those days you could still have a left-hand drive. That was the thing.
Yeah.
Nowadays you can't.
You can't, yeah.
Unless it was here already.
Yes,
which
correct.
is very, very sad.
I think the law is pre-2000.
Yeah, I think it was.
And post-2000, you can't import them, or you can't own one, or something like that.
I mean, which is just the most bizarre rule in the world.
It is, yeah.
I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. But that is highly sought after. Must be worth a lot of money.
I'm sure.
Yeah. 918 Spider.
Correct, same sort of thing.
Same kind of thing. Yeah. I know that there are a couple here in South Africa. And I mean, those kind of Porsches, 959. I mean, maybe one of the most iconic cars ever made.
Correct, yeah.
I mean, that car was superhuman.
Yeah.
For what it did on the road, then off the road.
Exactly.
I think it raced Dakar,
yeah, correct.
I mean, you go, no ways. Could go around a circuit at blitz speed, but then you can also go off-road as well.
Exactly, yeah.
So I mean, Porsche just seems to be able to sit and say, give us anything, our cars can go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's what is so...
Well, how many times did they compete in the Dakar over the years? And successfully?
Unbelievably.
A road car, spec it for the Dakar, and it does well.
In terms of modern Porsches, I'm talking for the last 8-10 years, up until today, what's the sort of maintenance cost, servicing cost on a Porsche? If you go and spend 2.5 million rand on your Porsche, I don't know if it comes with service plans. Let's say you're out of service plan. Now I sit and say, I need you to service my Porsche. Is it too expensive? Is it affordable? Can you get away with it? Yes. Somebody is looking to buy themselves a first Porsche, which is not in motor planning. It says, won the lottery, I'm going to buy myself a nice 996. Is that like the right one?
Yeah, 996 was, 96, 997, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, are they affordable to maintain?
So what you need to find out is, has it been maintained in the past? This is like a big thing. So if it's been neglected, you're going to burn your fingers there, because something hasn't been done, and if it does break, you're going to pay a lot of money. But if the car's been well maintained, it's affordable to maintain, because you just keep on with the maintenance. And there's a few things that do go. These are wear and tear items that you've got to replace from now and again, and they are fairly expensive.
Yeah.
But basically the maintenance is affordable.
Let's say somebody's got a 800,000 rand that they want to go and spend. Which Porsche would you recommend that they go and start on?
Now, it depends on the person. Does he want to get into classics, or does he just want to drive the car? He just wants a Porsche. He just knows the name.
He wants a Porsche.
Just wants Porsche. I want to drive a Porsche. Yeah. Well, then he must go for the early water cools, but they at the sort of on the bottom of the...
That sort of 99...
No, the 2000s, early 2000s, around about there, 996, 997s. Get some nice models, just basic models. You can get in there, drive it every day.
There we go. It's pretty attainable.
Yeah.
That's the main thing.
Definitely, yeah.
Are there a lot of Porsche clubs in South Africa? Are the people accommodating? Are they ready to help you? Or is it rather exclusive?
Well, yes, Porsche Club is, I suppose, an exclusive club because you've got to have a Porsche.
Sure.
But if you've got a Porsche, yeah, they're very accommodating, very friendly bunch. They've got a lot of events from breakfast runs to track days to skid pans to a concourse to, dinner dances. So, yeah, it's a very nice club to be part of.
And would people be willing, I mean, are they prepared to help? All of a sudden they say, I need a carburetor for a 74, this is the spec, does anyone have one? Are people willing to swap around?
Definitely.
Is there sort of like a swap shop?
Yes, there is, yeah. So they're mainly in the form of WhatsApp groups.
Okay.
So you'll join a WhatsApp group is like classic air-cooled Porsches or 356s.
Ah, there we go.
And then you'll be on that WhatsApp group and guys say, listen, can you help me with this? I need some brake shoes for this car. And then somebody will come up, yes, I've got one. And so, yes, there is a lot of trading. We've also got a lot of parts. So, we help the guys out, especially in the older cars.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Go and get one.
Yeah.
Last one I want to go on to, I nearly forgot about it, 930.
Yes.
I mean, a 911 Turbo, I think it's, iconic and different in its own way. But the 930, I remember going in a 930 Turbo 4-speed box.
Correct.
It was pretty uncomfortable, stiff as crazy, but my word, it was an experience. Are there still quite a few of them around?
Yeah.
In original kind of guys?
Yeah.
And I mean, they must also be quite collectible.
Yeah.
Not an easy car to drive.
No, not an easy car to drive.
Yeah.
I've restored a few of those back to concourse condition, won some
really?
concourses with those.
It's not a daily commuter.
I wouldn't, not in traffic. It's a great grand touring car.
Yeah.
Because it's got a lot of turbo lag. And then it all comes in at once and then...
you got to hold on.
Yeah, correct. But, the original Widowmaker, as they called it in the day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the Widowmaker.
Yeah, it was called the Widowmaker. A lot of people came unstuck on those cars.
Yeah. We'll leave. You figure out what that means on your own. Do you have a favorite Porsche?
I'm very passionate about my 356s and early 911s.
Okay.
Just the way that they drive.
Targas, Carreras.
The Carreras, obviously, that's a really iconic brand, name. And,
the name, yeah.
And there's very few genuine Carreras. They're all, the later cars were called Carrera, but the actual Carreras, like the 73 Carrera and the early Carreras, that was like the special car of that whole range was the Carrera.
Okay.
Now they're all called Carreras, so it sort of diluted that name.
But unfortunate.
Yeah, unfortunate.
But I mean, the new cars are, unbelievable. The tech that's in them, the electronics. But it's not the kind of car, unfortunately, if the car breaks down on the side of the road where a whole lot of lights come on, that you can just pop up the engine and go, okay, well, let's sort this out.
Fun Porsche system.
There we go. Flatbed, thank you.
Correct,
they plug in something and they go, reset, and the car's fine.
Wow, geez, how
I know, but it's so crazy.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
Correct.
Whereas the cars you're talking about, you can tinker with. You can still sit there. And the great thing about them as well is that they were not overly complicated engines.
No. They weren't.
Just really well made.
Correct.
Gave you this incredible amount of power and satisfaction and drivability.
Yeah.
And, well, okay, just change that, fix that, turn that, and it works.
Yeah. And there's a whole lot of parts catering for that, So they're keeping them going. And there are upgraded parts that people will realize that this works a lot better. And hence they're fitting them to those motors and they're keeping them as reliable and keep going.
Yeah. Tim, you must have come across a fortune of Porsches in your life already so far. What's like the craziest ask that you've had from a customer or a client or a friend looking for something?
Yeah, the guys do want to do stupid things, but I try to talk them out of it because ultimately it's going to reflect on me. I've got to do the work, and the guys aren't often happy with spending a lot of money and getting something that's really wild and undrivable. So you can make them, you can put big power into these cars, but often it's a balance between the brakes and the power and the handling. You can't just do one thing, increase the power, and you think you're going to have this fantastic car. it'll go fantastic in a straight line. When you want to take a corner, you're going to come unstuck.
Because, I mean, cars are made by the manufacturer to do what it says at that kind of power.
Correct.
Now, all of a sudden, you take a 1973 Carrera, and what was that, sort of like 200 horsepower?
Yeah, 210 now.
210.
Yeah.
Now somebody comes to you and says, listen, make it 310
Yeah.
horsepower. And you say, yes, I can. And then the guy says, but I've got the same brakes. You go, okay, well,
Yeah,
we don't make
exactly.
that.
Yeah, exactly. Gearbox is going to give trouble. Brakes are going to give trouble.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have the experience. You know, there's nothing like driving an original Porsche, was what it was meant for, how it was built, and you drive it as that, like a fully restored car. It's, you know, and you get the real, true sense of what Porsche are building.
Well, listen, it's fascinating, and we've got to come to your showroom, your shop, if you don't mind, one of these days to come and go through, and you can go through the evolution of all of these different cars that you've got there, and you know, some of your clients and customers' cars, if they don't mind as well. We'd love to do that.
Correct, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, with pleasure.
Well, there we go. That's quite a lot to learn and absorb about maybe one of the most famous brands, if not the most famous brand of cars in the world. Tim Abbot, our guest here today, thank you so much for your time. That is Cars, Etc, Etc. Send us any questions, you know, send us your comments as well if you have anything that we've missed. And don't forget, there's so much that we can go into as well on each of the marks that we talk about. But send them through to us, and of course we will catch up and answer them as best as we can. That is Cars, Etc, Etc for today. As always, brought to you by altcointrader.co.za. Go there, register, it's for free, and of course you can start trading in cryptocurrency. Until next time, take care. Ciao, ciao.
Ferris Cars is a Ferrari specialist dealership in Sandton, Johannesburg. Since 2010, Ferris Cars has dealt in all things related to Maranello's finest, from classics to the contemporary. Sales, service, advice and exclusive events, Ferris either has it or has access to it. And of course, in partnership with Altcoin Trader, Ferris Cars accepts cryptocurrency and can even help you buy your dream car from any other dealership in crypto. Check out their website at ferriscars.com or follow them on all popular social media platforms.